Captain, I'm sorry, my apologies. Captain Rubenog, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you are about to give is the truth? Thank you. You may be seated. Members, do you want to start with a line of questioning, or I was going to ask the captain if he wishes to provide his testimony relevant to the events that occurred on or about August 3rd to August 4th, if he has no objection.
Do you want me to introduce myself first?
Oh, I apologize again. Please introduce yourself and your title.
I am Captain Juan Rubenog with the CPA Ports Police Department for 14 years. I've been stationed at the seaport handling harbor and security.
Thank you, Captain. Did you want to go on to, after you introduced yourself, to kind of explain what you recall of that event?
Actually, before I proceed, I would like to exercise my 5th and 6th Amendment.
Counsel, would you like to?
Sure. I think, as I said earlier, Mr. Rubenog is informed of his rights. So even though the 6th Amendment follows the 5th, it's the 6th that he wants to go with first, if I'm correct. And yes. Would that be to assert your right to assistance of counsel
Yes.
and seek advice of counsel?
Yes.
Okay, which he does have. And I guess for the question that I asked you, I've asked you if you wanted to explain in your own words what happened during the evening of August 3rd or early morning hours of August 4th. You plead the 5th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would now open it up to any of the members to ask any questions.
Actually, Chair, I wanted to correct a misstatement on that plead the 5th. I know it's a street term that you plead the 5th. It's actually a constitutional right that you're invoking. So I don't want it to be misstated that someone pleads the 5th. He invokes his constitutional right to, but I don't, I just wanted to correct that.
Thank you for the clarification, Counsel, and that he was pleading the 5th to the question that I asked. We will continue questioning, and our Captain Rubenog can respond accordingly. Members? If the members are not ready at this time, Captain, were you on duty on or about August 3rd to August 4th?
Yes.
Can you state for the record what time you came in during your shift, or what shift was that?
Actually, I was working from 08. We were providing force protection for Navy US vessel that berthed here on Saipan.
08 in the morning on August 3rd? No?
3rd.
Thank you. What time did you finish working?
Finished working on August 4th at 06:30 $100.
Thank you for that clarification. And your shift, as you stated, started at the dock area, the Commonwealth, was it Charlie Dock?
Yes.
Thank you. At some point, we saw the video footage. You were at the airport. if I may ask, at what time did you proceed to the airport terminal? Roughly, just your recollection.
At about 03.
Thank you. May I ask, were you instructed or requested to report to the airport?
I think I would like to assert my right to a counsel.
Okay, going further. Once you were at the airport, you reported to the your port's police office, I would assume. You report to your main office. You have an office right there at the port's police area. Did you go in there? And my question really is, who was on duty when you came to the airport? Meaning, port's police personnel. Who else was on duty when you arrived at the airport and you checked in with your office?
That early morning of the 4th, it would be Officer Mike Guerrero.
What about is there like a sergeant or officer in charge at that time? Was there an officer in charge, and who would that person be?
No.
So Officer Mike Guerrero was the officer in charge. He was the senior ranking person that you met there.
Yes.
Were there any other individuals or port's police personnel that were also on duty on the morning of the 4th when you arrived at the airport at 0300 hours? Aside from Officer, was it Mike Guerrero?
At that time, I report to Ports Police Central. All the officers that were working that day, early morning, were dispatched to assign to their post.
And do you know who those individuals were?
No.
Thank you. It's no secret that everybody, I guess, through the media footage that night, I saw yourself as well as Chief Jordan at the airport. Now we know from your testimony that you were there, arriving at the airport at about 0300 hours from the dock. Do you know if your chief was on duty early that morning?
I don't know.
Let me just ask, as a standard operating procedure or SOP, you do have SOP at the airport, right? Can any ports police, whether they are whatever rank, whether they're officer 1 or captain or commander, if they're not on duty, do they have any authority over their subordinates? It's just, for example, let's take for example you. If you, as a captain, on your own time, let's say you went up to the airport and you're about to see some relatives off, but you witness some incident, do you have authority and you are off duty to instruct your subordinates to do something, do you have that authority? Does your SOP cover what happens when an individual is not on duty, but it's a hypothetical question,
But I think, if I may, I think the question is, if he, while off duty, observes, something which appears to be criminal conduct, whether he would have the authority to order a on-duty subordinate to act or enforce the law. Is that the question?
yes, but further, let's say, I guess the most basic question would be, when you're off duty, can you instruct your subordinates to do their job first? Let's say there is no criminal activity. Are you authorized to instruct your subordinates to do whatever it is you command them to do, but you're not in uniform, or you're not on duty?
Actually, all law enforcement are 24/7 on duty, on call, and if I'm not mistaken, before I make any decision over that shift, I would like to consult with the immediate supervisor before I delegate his or her officers.
I think that's a very proper answer, because in most law enforcement organizations, you do have chain of command. And when you're not on duty, somebody else is. And there are subordinates and there are people in charge. So the proper answer is what you gave, that when you're off, you would probably report to the officer in charge, right? Thank you. I'll yield for now. Any members? Representative Guerrero.
Hi, Captain. How are you?
Good, sir.
You know why you're here, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Have you read the articles of impeachment?
Yes.
Okay. Have you read Article 4, the commission of a felony?
Yes.
Okay. Based on Article 4, do you have any information, not hearsay, any information that the governor is involved with this issue of Buckingham with the other officers at the airport?
Sorry, I want to make sure he understands the question. Could you rephrase?
Yeah. What I'm trying to find out is whether he has any information that the governor is directly involved with Buckingham at the airport scenario.
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Captain Rubenog, good morning. Or is it good afternoon already? You stated earlier that you were on duty on August 3rd as well as August 4th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know the former Attorney General, Mr. Ed Buckingham?
Yes.
On the evening of August 3rd or the morning of August 4th, did you see Mr. Buckingham at the Saipan International Airport?
Yes.
Did you see anyone else accompanying Mr. Buckingham during that time?
That early morning when I arrived at the airport, I saw Captain Jermaine Nicaifus and Ambrosio Ogumoro.
Were there anyone else besides Captain Germain or Deputy Commissioner Ogumoro?
The chief,
The chief of
Force Police Chief, Jordan Cosa.
Mr. Jordan Cosa. Anyone else? Did you see a lady accompanying Mr. Buckingham?
Actually, I didn't see Mr. Buckingham until they were ready to head up the screening.
So you never saw a lady with Mr. Buckingham?
No.
No, okay. Do you know if the port's police chief was scheduled to be at the port's or the airport facilities during that morning of August 4th?
No.
You didn't know whether he was going to be on duty or not?
No, I didn't know.
And who was in command of the port's police when you arrived at the Saipan International Airport?
Officer Mike Guerrero.
Officer Mike Guerrero was in charge. And throughout this ordeal, if you will, you witnessed Ed Buckingham being escorted by the Deputy Commissioner and the Ports Police Chief from the departure gate going up leading to the TSA area.
I'm going to object. I think it's leading him to the facts that he hasn't testified.
I'm just asking whether he had seen Mr. Buckingham escorted throughout the TSA area. I'm not trying to lead him into.
Yes.
You saw him there.
Yes.
Thank you, Captain. At this time, I will yield for now.
Thank you, Rep. Bob, if you're going to respond, do you mind just pressing the button? So,
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
if you are going to respond.
Okay.
Thank you. Captain Rubenog, you have CPA Ports Police has radio codes for yourself and other CPA Ports Police. Is that correct? There's a radio code assigned to each police officer.
Yes.
What, if I may ask, is your radio code?
04.
And
Sorry, 03.
you're 03. What is the radio code for your superior? And I'm assuming your captain. Is there major? Who is above you? Let me put it that way.
The Assistant Chief.
And who would that be?
Juan de la Cruz.
And what would his radio code be?
01.
I see. Who is assigned the radio code 00?
The Chief.
Thank you. Thank you. Captain Rubenog, were you aware that a penal summons was to be served to the former Attorney General Edward Buckingham?
one moment.
No, sir.
At any point in time, when did you find out that a penal summons was to be served to Mr. Buckingham?
The time I couldn't recall, but I was at the holding room when I met with FBI Hejung Park. That's when I found out that they have a subpoena.
And you don't recall the time, but was that before or after Mr. and Mrs. Buckingham proceeded through the screening area?
That was after, when they were at the holding room.
Prior to that, you had no knowledge that a subpoena needed to be issued?
No.
Thank you. And I'm gathering, based on what you've just said, that it was through your discussions with the FBI agents that you learned that a subpoena was to be issued.
Correct.
Thank you. I'll yield for now. I'll allow other members, Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Captain Rubenog, as I understand it, you transported yourself from the seaport to the airport during August the 3rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Earlier I asked you whether you knew Mr. Buckingham, and you stated in the affirmative, and whether you saw him, and you stated in the affirmative, and you also stated that Chief Jordan Kosan and the Deputy Commissioner for DPS were escorting Mr. Buckingham. Did you have any knowledge as to why these two individuals were escorting Mr. Buckingham?
No, sir.
You didn't know why they were doing that?
No.
Did you ask anyone, or did you speak to anyone to find out what was going on and why Mr. Buckingham was being escorted? Anyone at the area?
Representative De La Cruz, anything as to time? You're talking about any time after you saw that, or to today, or that morning, or?
I believe on the two dates, on August 3rd and August 4th.
Okay.
More specifically, when he just witnessed
Sure.
Mr. Buckingham being escorted.
Okay, all right, let me just confer with him.
Yes.
So you did ask somebody,
Yes.
and who was this person that you asked?
Ambrosio Gomero.
And what did Mr. Ogomoro say to you after inquiring what was going on here?
You mean as to the escort, the reason for the escort?
Yes, yes.
The reason that early morning when I met with the commissioner, I inquired as to why he needed our assistance. So the reason why he stated is that Mr. Buckingham wants not to be bothered by the media. He wants just to exit the vehicle and just enter screening area and just depart.
Thank you, Mr. Rubenog. And throughout your experience as a law enforcement officer for the Sinamay ports, do you feel that that is a common practice to do, to escort individuals or to assist in escorting individuals to the main gate or the departure gate?
Yes, sir. For my 14 years of service, we've been doing this. For example, for the governor's VIP, the legislature's VIP, the public, we do escort. We provide them escort. We offer them our greatest, where we can escort them up to screening if they needed our assistance. So if there's a request that comes to the director then assign the chief to, make sure that ports police renders assistance to. So yeah, the examples are like the federal agents, the U.S. Congress, the governors from the Micronesia, lieutenant governors, and those that are considered the VIP and the ones that needed our assistance.
So I guess we can safely assume that that is a normal practice in your course of doing your duty as a law enforcement.
Yes.
Did you
Members,
Is there-
may I interject? I just want to remind the members, we have a 1 o'clock hearing to hear testimonies from other individuals and it's 20 to 1. And we do have one more person, one or two more people that are standing by to be interviewed regarding this. So please.
I'll do diligence, Chairman. And so, Captain Rubenog, to the extent of this escort that you perform as a law enforcer up at the airport, does that also extend to carrying their personal belongings such as luggages and so forth?
Yes. Even when the dignitaries or VIPs arrive to Saipan, we do carry their baggages out. We do escort them out also. We do help them also from the aircraft out to CVP, then out to CNMI Custom, out to their vehicle.
Okay. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Chairman. No further.
Thank you. Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Chairman. Captain Rubenog, good afternoon. You mentioned that originally on the date of August 3rd, you were detailed to your regular post, which is at the Saipan Port, Seaport.
Actually, I was at the seaport providing force protection.
Okay, and from there on, you reported to and arrived at the Saipan International Airport at around what time?
At about 03.
That's for the general public. That's 3 a.m. in the morning. Your shift was normally on that day. What time?
My shift was midnight.
Midnight.
12 o'clock.
And you reported. So you checked it at the seaport.
August 3rd, from 8 a.m. to midnight, and then head up to the airport to assist with the inbound and outbound flights.
Okay, and upon your arrival at the seaport, at the airport, you mentioned earlier that the officer in charge, or I'm assuming the supervisor on duty, was Mr. Guerrero?
Yes.
Let me try to get clarification. A report mentioning a Sergeant C.T. Reyes, is that a member of CPA Police?
Yes.
In the report, when asked in regards to the penal summons, Sergeant C.T. Reyes replied that he said nothing in answer, and that the officer, which is investigator something from OPA, should ask Captain John Rubenog because he's the supervisor. Now, as the ranking officer on location, on the CPA standard operating procedures and chain of command, were you, as the ranking officer, the officer in charge at the time that you were on duty?
Just to clarify, I believe the prior shift commander was CT Regis, but he had already he was an outgoing shift commander. By the time Captain Rubenog arrived at the airport, he was no longer the shift commander.
Yeah, clarification. It was M. Guerrero who responded that you were, or the question should be relayed or asked of you because you were the supervisor. Is that a true Cruz statement?
Representative Sablan, I think I have to object because
Well, let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
As earlier stated, Captain Rubenog mentioned that the supervisor on duty was M. Guerrero, and his rank was
Officer 2.
Officer 2. You being a captain, obviously, is a higher rank officer than M. Guerrero. Is that correct?
Yes.
So with you on the clock, on duty, being a captain, what is the chain of command in regards to your organization, in regards to who's in charge? Would it be M. Guerrero or you as the captain?
For the airport side, it would be Mike Guerrero.
So the statement of Officer Guerrero that you're the supervisor is incorrect?
Actually, sir, I haven't seen any reports, so I don't understand.
Okay, set the report aside. When you have an officer 2 and you have a captain on location, on duty, in your organization, with your, 14 years with CPA, who is the officer in charge?
The officer in charge is the guy that runs the shift that night. When a captain reports for duty, when requested by the officer, needing the assistance of a senior officer, the senior officer that reports for duty becomes the OIC that night.
During the early morning hours, according to the report, and again I mentioned the report, there was the people in the CPA office, upon the request of special agents for a access to the sterile area of Saipan International Airport, we're seeking your approval. Why is that if you weren't in charge?
Actually, sir, that early morning when the agent reported up to the airport, I can't recall what time, but they weren't getting clearance from me, actually, if I recall. They wanted to meet with me down at the office.
There was no mention of in your communication over your radio or your cell phone that the agents were requesting access?
I can't recall, sir.
Okay, that's fair enough. And I think, I don't know whether, I can't recall whether it was Representative De La Cruz asked, but when you reported to the airport, you weren't curious of what was going on?
Actually, when I reported to the airport, I just found out about the request when the line supervisor requested me to meet with the commissioner.
And I'm going to quote a line here in the report. I'm going to read something out and you tell me whether it's accurate or do you recall making that statement. And it says, Captain John then came inside the office and said, "Man, I don't want to have problem with AIDS." This is like alert level 3. Do you recall making that statement?
Sorry, Representative Sablan, what he's asking is, he's trying to remember. And so in the way it works in court is if he says he doesn't remember, that something may help him remember. It may be that report. So I've told him that if he can ask for it if it'll help him. So he's trying to answer your question, but he can't remember. So
You can't remember.
if seeing the report may help him refresh, then he may be able to answer your question.
That's what I...
Yeah. Sure. Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and try to answer it.
You may respond.
Yes, sir.
You recall making that statement?
Yes.
May I ask why?
Actually, when the reason why I mentioned that is when I met FBI Park up at the holding room. He showed me a penal summon, and I advised the agent that I wasn't trying to delay him because I didn't know anything about the summon. So that's when I guided him to where Buckingham was at that early morning. So when I went down to the office, the reason why I said I don't want to have a problem with him is I couldn't recall why, but the way when I went out from the sliding door from TSA and I looked around, knowing the fact that there was a penal summon and I wasn't briefed that early morning, I don't want to create problem, assuming that the agent might say we're trying to, avoid or whatever.
So knowing that what happened at the airport involved trying to the attempt to serve illegal summons, did you know that? Well, let me go back. By knowing that what transpired up at the airport at early morning hours involved an attempt to trying to serve a legal penal summons to former AG was wrong?
I'm going to object to that. That's calling for a legal conclusion. I mean, that's
as a law enforcement officer for 14 years, what's your opinion of what transpired?
Representative Sablan, you mean about the part about escorting? About what transpired about the escort of Mr. Buckingham?
No, I'm saying about that the so-called VIP escort was in fact an attempt to prevent the service of a legal summons
By Captain Rubenog?
by law enforcement officers on the spot.
He's asking what you think of that.
Sir, like I said earlier, we were just escorting. We were not trying to avoid or block any people.
I understand that, but afterwards, after the communication with Agent Park, you said that you came up with the statement.
Okay. And you want to know what he thinks about that?
Can you?
And he mentioned that he said that after knowing that there was a legal summons that was for AG Buckingham.
Rep. Sablan? Just checking.
Yeah, Chairman, if we're gonna.
No, I'm just asking if you was going to ask you if you have any further questions. Thank you.
I'm just waiting for. Trying to give Officer Rubenog an opportunity.
My opinion is to enforce the law unlike others.
Thank you, Cap.
Thank you, Cap, and thank you, Representative Sablan. Representative De La Cruz has a short question.
Yes. Captain Rubenog, I just wanted to ask whether you recalled Special Agent Park trying to get a hold of you or to communicate with you during the morning of August 4th.
Sorry, sir, can you repeat your question?
Yes, I can repeat the question. Do you recall if Special Agent Park was trying to get a hold of you or trying to communicate with you on the morning of August 4th?
Yes, actually I was called by the Officer Guerrero, and I advised Officer Guerrero that I was in the men's room. Also, I advised Officer Guerrero that the FBI has every right to enter the airport without my permission. They're authorized to enter the airport whenever they have an arrest warrant to serve or any other investigation at the airport. They can enter.
Okay, good. Now, the following question here is, when he was trying to communicate with you, did you ask the officer or the dispatcher for Special Agent Park's cell phone number so that you can call him back?
I can recall, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I know we are really pressed for time. I have two very direct questions to ask you, Captain Rubenog. But before I ask, I will state that we have information that copies of the penal summons was served to Commonwealth Ports Police during the shift of August 3rd. So it was before you came in. It was on the night before. At approximately 8 p.m., a copy of the penal summons was provided to Sergeant Regis. asking that they serve that summon to Mr. Buckingham. So CPA was made aware that a penal summons was to be served to Mr. Buckingham. We also know that after Sergeant Rage's shift, he departed, and the incoming shift, Police Officer Mike Guerrero did not know that, or was not informed that a penal summons was to be served to Mr. Buckingham. Do you have any knowledge, or do you know what transpired that the outgoing shift did not relay that information to the incoming shift?
No, sir.
You had no knowledge?
No knowledge.
Okay. The second matter, and I think that was raised by both Representative Sablon and Representative De La Cruz, had to do with the two FBI agents who, according to reports that we have in our possession, had made multiple attempts to be given passes to be able to enter into the airport area. We have information that they were given passes that were either expired or that did not work, and that's why they have made multiple attempts to try to reach you to get a pass. I think it was becoming frustrating, and it borders, I would not inject my own opinion, it sounded like it was obstruction, but never mind that. There's two serious issues aside from the actual escort, and that is that law enforcement officers did attempt to, actually provided copy to CPA, and that copy was never served. And secondly, when the FBI agents were called in to issue, that they met with resistance. And that is what is concerning the members of this committee, why that came about. I understand that you did come in early on August 4th, and that you came in for the porch. You are not the actual supervisor, but because you did outrank the officer, porch police officer there, that you, I guess, sort of assumed that role. But again, for the record, were you aware of any conversations? Were you aware of any radio communications to the effect that a penal summons was to be served on Mr. Buckingham after you arrived at the airport?
But prior to meeting with Agent Park?
Yes.
No, sir.
Thank you. That is all I have. One last question.
One last question.
One last question.
Mr. Rubenog, or Cap, earlier I asked you about who was in charge the evening or the morning of August 4th. Provided to the committee from CPA is a Ports Police Daily Summary Report dated August 4th, 2012, Shift B, 2400 to 0800 hours. Under OIC, it's listed Captain Rubenog. But earlier when I asked you who was in charge, you said it was M. Guerrero. So can you clarify the two issues?
Okay, sir. prior to Mike Guerrero running the show from midnight, I worked August 3rd at 0800 hours for overtime, 16 hours from 8 to midnight. Due to shortage of manpower, I had to assist my shift up at the airport, which is the midnight. So Mike Guerrero is my second senior officer on my shift. So that early morning I had to head up to the airport to assist Mike Guerrero.
But go ahead.
Still, he's the officer in charge that night at the airport.
M. Guerrero.
Yeah.
So this is misleading, not correct, or how do you say it? If your official logbook says you're the officer in charge, and you're telling me otherwise, which is
Okay, sir. The reason why my name is up there is I was only up there to assist my chief, which is Mike Guerrero. He was still in charge.
okay.
So the reason why I signed the DSR is because of the incident that happened that early morning, not knowing that there was a penal summons. So I had to sign off because I was running the shift already that night. But Mike Guerrero was assigned by me to run the shift, but when I went up there, I took over the shift, but he was still my field sergeant officer in charge.
He was the officer. You said he was running the show, but you were in charge.
No. He said he was the officer in charge, but when he came up, he took over the ship because he was the ranking, because that's the way the procedure
Okay,
works.
so that was my question earlier. Who was in charge in the early morning hours? And you said it was M. Guerrero, and you're just telling me now that
Michael Guerrero was the officer in charge until Captain Rubenog came in at 3 o'clock in the morning and he took over the ship. That's entirely consistent with the report. Because he took over at 3 o'clock.
He came on location at 3 a.m. And what transpired when